Welcome to Apex and Blue Star Lacrosse webinar 003. Humble and vigilant as always here on a Saturday, sharing what I feel is interesting and useful perspectives from some men that I consider leaders and I have a great deal of respect for. I don't think I've done this on previous webinars, so I'll do it now. I'm Coach MV Whitlow, 27 years into this coaching thing, focused on high school development, and very honored and humbled to be on here with you guys. And I'll let them introduce themselves now to all of you guys.
Hi, everyone. Brian Hopper, Director at Blue Star Lacrosse and Apex Lacrosse. I am helping out with the tech side of things and also going to chime in. And like Coach Whitlow said, happy to be here. And excited to hear what everyone's going to say.
How are you? Thanks for inviting me to this webinar. My name is Akauola, a high school teacher, performance and wellness coach. Been working in the field for over 17 years. Been the privilege of able to work with an array of individuals and families, just kind of help them, gear them in the right direction as far as optimizing their performance and their health to attain their outcome.
How's it going, everybody? I want to thank Coach Whitlow for having me on. I'm super excited to be here and humbled. My name is Chris Aslanian. I played lacrosse at Hobart and graduated this past May. I'm currently playing for the Denver Outlaws, and I'm also an assistant coach at Princeton University.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Brian, Coach Az, Coach A, really appreciate it. The purpose of this is pretty simple. It's to share perspectives on our times right now, to generate useful, purposeful content, in the interest of helping everyone manage and continue on a development and, growth trajectory. Purposeful perspectives, purposeful content. And we are obviously in these times very vigilant and compassionate. Kind of started off with a quote before I turned it over to Coach A. You can only sharpen an axe so many times. It's the swinging it that really counts. So thank you for your leadership, gentlemen. I respect all of you and really looking forward to your perspectives. Coach A, if you'd lead us off, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you, MV. To kind of build on that axe, nothing puts it better than that, intent and purpose behind how you kind of navigate your growth and the challenges that you choose to dive into are important, right? They'll definitely help shape where you like to go. And considering the environment and the variable that we have to navigate right now with perceived proximal isolation, it's now we have to kind of look into how we're going to swing and move forward, right? Are we going to go into self and focus on the possible negative impacts that are happening and deciding that it's happening to me, or realizing that this negative stuff is just happening and it's happening to everyone? And if that's the case, what am I going to do? What's my ownership? What responsibility I'm going to take to better myself and forge forward, as well as how I'm going to impact those that are around me. For some people, it's specifically the people in your household right now. For others, it's an extension of your household to families that may not be close to you, but you can communicate via technology or cell phone. And there's other mediums in which you can do that. As a coach, it's kind of neat that we can leverage social media platforms now. What kind of content are you going to put out there? Are you going to put out something that just kind of carpet bombs? Or are you going to start to think about, that student, that player that really needed something, you're right there to help coach them through it and put that kind of element out there. I think it's important for me as a strength and conditioning coach, a performance coach, and as a teacher, that I look and remember some of the students that were right at that verge of making that change and understanding, the depths and the intent behind their action in every rep and every moment, how important and impactful it can be if they make those choices for themselves.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach A. Very honored and humbled to hear your words. It helps. Miss seeing you all the time, man.
Same here.
Coach Az.
Yeah. So kind of going off of that, just from a program perspective at Princeton, obviously this is an extremely challenging time. We've been trying to stay in touch with the guys as much as possible through Zoom meetings. They just started their online classes, so they're really dialed in academically, and they've been in communication with our strength and conditioning coach, who's been giving them numbers of workouts to do, even if they don't have the necessary equipment. So our guys have been handling this really well. It was obviously devastating to hear that our season was canceled after all the work those guys have put in the fall and the success we had in the spring. But I'm most proud of how those guys are handling it. They seem to try to get back into a normal routine, one similar that they had at Princeton, obviously in a much different environment. And, kind of looking at it, if I was a high school athlete, just putting myself in one of those guys' shoes, I know I would struggle at this time, not being able to see my teammates and coaches at practice on a regular basis, and having that accountability. So I just kind of urge a lot of these high school guys out here to take this opportunity and really better yourself. You can, change yourself physically by working out every day and eating right. And when you get the opportunity to play organized lacrosse again, you can come back even stronger and not only make yourself better, but your teammates. I think, that's advice I would want to hear if I was a high school athlete right now. And that's what the student athletes at Princeton are doing at the highest level. So, the earlier you can behave like them, the better off you'll be.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. That's one of my major concerns right now for, working with high school aged athletes and then giving support to families and to high school developing student athletes. I'm concerned, and I would stress personally as advice, the accountability level. Having a team, having a group of guys that you're responsible to, having the support staff, having the trainers, going to practice every day, having the coaches and interacting with them every day. I mean, you're going to get up, you're going to go to school, but then you have a team to go to and you have those team goals that you're going after as a group. That's going away right now. And that's a concern to me experientially, that that leaves a gap in structure that's come up on a couple of these perspectives from coaches, is that where does that get filled in? That structure piece, and you balance structure and opportunity, and you'd like to say, okay, this is going to be an opportunity to get better. Well, is it? Because time will tell, and we are going to come out of this thing, and you hope that the student athletes themselves, the accountability does fall on them, but it falls on us a little bit too. And I think that's where this kind of content and the stuff that we're pushing out as leaders, whether you're in Charlotte, North Carolina, or Atlanta, Georgia, or San Diego, or wherever, that as leaders of organizations that are interacting with developing growth phase adolescent athletes, that you're filling that structure and not just saying, okay, well, hey, we think this is what you should do. Maybe more structure than that is needed, because it does layer in that accountability level that you need to identify that it's not there. I think that's really important. Shifting gears to the second part of this, getting more specific. Coach Az, you're going to start us off with a little bit of skill development talk, what you would have done if you could turn the clock back and be 16 or 17 years old again. I know I wish I could. Really interested in your perspective on this. So go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, skill development is really important, and it's something I'm still trying to get better at now. I still go out and try and prepare for my season, just as I would when I was in high school. And the biggest thing right now, obviously, there's a lot of fields closed. Some fields are locking up their goals. So with limited resources, you kind of just have to work with what you have. Some guys have a goal in their backyard, right, and others don't. So just finding a spot where you can get a stick in your hands and work on your weaknesses and turn them into your strengths, and also enhance your strengths is really key here. Something that has helped me in my career is, working on my offhand. I didn't have, I wasn't a very two-handed player growing up. And I wish I had worked on my offhand from an earlier age, but I kind of found in college that, it would help me out tremendously. And, my sophomore year, I would just keep the stick in my right hand the whole summer. I didn't really put it in my left hand all that much. And, I just tried to get comfortable with it and work on it as best as I can. And I think, being in the position we are now, if you're stuck at home, if you can just get the stick in your hand, as much as you can, and, try and turn that weakness into a strength, you're going to be better off in this time.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach. Brian, you have the floor, sir.
Thanks, Coach Whitlow. One thing I wanted to talk about was routine. Coach Whitlow talked about how, with this whole situation, everyone's been taken out of their ordinary routine and structure. And I think that's really important to set yourself up for success while you're in this time. One thing that's been super important for me is the night before, every day I think about, all right, tomorrow, obviously I got to do, work, I got to exercise, but specifically, what time do I want to do all those things? What time do I want to wake up? What time do I want to work out? What time do I want to spend time helping my mom? I think that now is a very good opportunity for everybody, myself included. I'm 29 years old, to practice some self-discipline like that. And there are actually a lot of apps, and there's actually a lot of technology you can use. I like to use the bedtime app on my iPhone. Helps me go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. There's all sorts of workout apps you can use that can track your performance while you're home. And, the Blue Star coaches, we've got a very active thread of every day, we're all posting our workouts and sending them to each other. So we are being social, and we are keeping each other accountable. So, while everyone's home alone, you can still practice self-discipline and get your routine down, and get your work done. And using technology can help. So I think that's very important right now, and it's a good opportunity to practice.
Thanks, Coach. Wise insight. The section of the webinar that I think we've all been waiting for the most. Coach A, our highly respected sage advisor, who's on mute right now. Looking forward to hearing your words of wisdom here.
Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, everybody, especially in this webinar, has been speaking a very similar language. You have to get specific as possible when you're mapping out your plan, right? Your plan to be a better athlete, your plan to be a better son, daughter, mother, husband, whatever the case may be. This is the time to really, really refine what that looks like. A lot of us are really good at making these ambiguous outlines of where we'd like to go. And we allow ourselves to fall to the excuses of what was our previously norm daily routine, right? We just kind of got up, we kind of happenstance. It was a kind of a rhythm to it. We assumed the specifics. Now we have the time, right? The distractions aren't there. A lot of us can't just leave our house and go to our jobs. Can't just go out to have to study. All that kind of stuff has been put to the outliers, right? It's been, the mechanism has been cleared where now as an individual, we can really take ownership of like, all right, Monday through Friday, these are the specific things that I want to work on. All right. I've been told to, my core keeps falling short. Well, what does that mean? Let me dive into the research. Do I have a coach available? And if you're watching this, then more than likely you do within the Blue Star Apex organization or at Princeton University. You can reach out, hey, Coach Aslanian. Like they talk about core, do you have some tips for me? And there's like another way a position coach or assistant coach can connect with their player. And let's just kind of figure this out together. What does it mean to keep neutral spine? What are some of the specifics in my body that I am lacking that I know if I work on, let me drill that out. What do my reps look like, right? What are my quality of reps? Am I just getting through it? It has to be as specific as possible. And then when you kind of develop that, then you have to make sure that it's a living, actionable plan. And what that means is that it's going to be adjustable because life changes. Life throws tons of variables your way. We're in it now. Right? It didn't come out the way we envisioned going into our spring season, right? And now it's changed. And what does that spring season look like? Well, it's changed a little bit. And if you've really developed yourself and you were specific and you've been training and learning and understanding as student athletes, we're built for variables like this. Now we got to dig into that toolbox and how do we kind of reshape that tools and apply it towards what we're trying to do in this new kind of field of play, right? Are we still refining our skills? Am I working on my offhand? Am I understanding what it is to manage the distance, right? So as a defensive player, our responsibility isn't just to lower the boom, right? It's to stay in front. How do I take care of this guy that's got great feet? Well, I have to understand the distance that allows him to be compromised as well as a threat. Right? When I understand that, then I can play, I could be more effective. How do I drill that? Where do I go to drill that spacing and that footwork? And then when it comes to nutrition, now I can really square that away. Like, what am I doing? Am I eating right? Let me pay attention to, am I getting, the amount of protein that I need based upon my activity level? What are different types of carbohydrates? Am I going towards refined foods or I'm going towards more complex, dense foods, right? There's a difference in your fats. You're supposed to have fats on your daily plate, but is it, dense fats that you get from like nuts or seeds, right? Are my carbohydrates coming from just simple carbohydrates like bread, or am I going and diving into fruits and berries and understanding how they affect my body? What's my sleep pattern like? Like Coach Hobart talked about. He's like, all right, this is a great time to figure this out. Am I getting quality of rest so I can be the most effective decision maker in the next day? So I can actually make my plan and my strategy come to life. And I think it's important that when you start to move forward, you get as specific as possible. Because when you start to write the specifics and you start to fall short, you realize, okay, there's my gap of learning. This is what I need to go ahead and do some research about. And if you're saying it's hard work, well, yeah, anytime you dive into something new, there's work involved. And anybody that's created victory in their life understands there's work involved. And the reason why they get goosebumps after they get a chance to taste that championship cup is because they remember all the hard work. They remember the people that were willing to share every piece of their experience in their time. They remember the coaches that really stress their own personal home relationships with their family to make sure as a player you're well suited for the field. Opening up their timeline, right? Something that your mom and dad would just do for you. I think coaches take it beyond. They do it for their family and they do it for their players day in and day out. Even the ones that give them the hard time, and the ones that give them the hard time, I've seen great coaches show the most compassion. And it's an incredible thing to watch real coaches that get out there and understand that as an exciting thing. And it inspires me to keep, coaching the way I do, even in the situation I'm in. I love being able to be around my students, miss it dearly, but there's other ways to do it. And I got to think moving forward. Okay, how do I make this happen? What specifics can I do to have that engagement, even though I can't be there to shoulder some of their disconcerts or their fears and help them have the tools to kind of navigate that.
Man, Coach A, I said I missed you. I miss you even more now, man. Thanks for that perspective. It's always refreshing to hear. hard wrap up to do here because there's so much good stuff. You know, Coach Az, thank you so much. Coach A, you're the man. Thank you so much. Coach Hopper, much respected. Thank you so much, especially on the overwatch on this thing. You know, to do a little bit of a wrap up, you know, body of work is going to matter. I think Coach A touched on that. You know, what are you doing? And you know, are you journaling it? Are you going to be able to look back on this time and say, I did this day, I had this plan? You know, the overrider here being that we're all going to be exercising an overabundance of caution and a high level of awareness and compassion and situational awareness, especially on the time continuum. Chris Az will remember that. Part of it, you know, where are we? Not just geographically, but in the time continuum as well. And like Coach Hopper said, you know, the routine part, there's an opportunity here for time management development in a selfless manner. So some of the material from some of the other coaches that have been on here, you can be better by planning tomorrow. Plan 2 days from now. What time are you getting up? What's your workout going to be? What time do you have to take care of your virtual learning, your online classes? Plan your meals. Check with the other people that you're in your house with. What are they doing? Do they need some help? What are they doing? How can you help your parents? How can you help your siblings? You know, basically you're using this time hopefully to, you know, to build self, to build trust, to build relationships, you know, to build compassions, to build thoughtfulness. And as a young person that's developing, that's in a growth phase, I think those are important things to talk about. If you're going to end up being a good teammate and a good functioning member of a victory producing dynamic, it starts with selflessness. You know, in the reps that you're doing when you're going out and you're shooting and you're doing the things that Coach Az just said, you know, are you doing them with intent? Are your reps meaningful? Are your reps unique? Or are you just doing the reps how everybody else does them? Or are you just going through the motions? I mean, are you truly focused and intent on the moment and executing what you're doing? The only other thing I would ask, just real quick, and this is kind of a sidebar, and we can edit it out if we need to, but Coach A, do you have any advice for these guys that are really serious? And let's take it to a higher level, to that junior, senior, sophomore in high school that really is going to go out and rep hard. And we know that, and we've seen it together, what repetitive stress injuries look like. And so if they're going out and repping hard every day, because we're telling them to, I think that responsibly, we also need to tell them how to manage repetitive stress, specifically lengthening of hamstrings, strengthening of core, belly button down, core strength, things like that. So Coach A, from a performance standpoint, optimization, can you touch on that a little bit about how to warm that up, how to strengthen that, how to keep those hamstrings lengthened, how to keep that core strong so that those repetitive stress injuries don't creep into this scenario?
Yes, absolutely. This is where the specifics come into play. Understand how you produce your style of play. What is it that you utilize in your body to create a shot to break down? Understand your footing and your balance. And this is where you start to work on, all right, well, when I go to shoot from right to left, I'm just ripping through my shoulders. I don't actually open up my thoracic or allow my body to rotate. I'm rotating, my lower back's hurting. So that means that you're definitely don't have that neutral spine. You're not leveraging the strength in your lower half to help you drive through the shot, right? So my suggestion to you is like, all right, let me go create neutral spine. Well, what is that? That's your ability to take your hips and actually tilt them, not so much so significantly forward, right, or completely back, but just so that your hip line, the top of your hip line, is parallel to the ground. When that happens, you're going to start to feel some muscles on here. You're going to feel your glutes. You're going to feel your quads activate. You're going to feel your abdominals, not just your superficial ones, such as your rectus and your obliques, but you're going to feel this transverse abdominal, this like little bit of muscle that wraps around and supports the spine, specifically the lumbar. And when that's on, that allows your thoracic, the one that's supposed to kind of rotate the middle of your body, to take over and do what it does. That's where the performance aspect is happening. I think with a lot of young guys, they kind of got a lot of success and a lot of power, or looked like there was a lot of power and speed on their shot from just kind of muscling it. This is a great time to kind of take a step back to make sure that you can have sustainable performance, right? It's one of the things that I tell my kids all the time in the weight room. They want to squat the world. And that's like, well, nobody's going to really, that's not going to really matter if you can squat 500 pounds and your back hurts, because now you can't play, right? You can't sustain your performance because now you're compromised. Your back's always hurt and we can't get the best out of you. So it's important to, all right, look, well, let me make sure what's going on in my feet, right? Am I able to touch the ground with my hands effortlessly? Are my hips hinging when I go to touch the ground, which means they're just drifting back, so that my back can be supported and protected. My hips take the load, and then my legs or muscles are supposed to do what they do. Understanding your dynamics. So if you ever did a warm up and you were kind of cutting reps, this is a great time to go revisit those active dynamic exercises and make sure you're well balanced and in control, right? So like a lunge, I've seen a lot of people do a walking lunge and they rock back to go forward. They take extra steps to cheat so they don't have to do another lunge. This is the time you take those extra tiptoe steps out, do every single rep, right? You don't need to conserve any energy, right? You just want to learn how to continue to build that understanding between body and mind and where you need to be in space. I can't stress enough, especially as lacrosse players, anybody that really has to swing across their spine, to have a significantly strong core and that's stable and functional. I'm not too concerned with your power reps. I know you're going to get it done. That's the fun stuff. That's the same thing as a football player, tackling somebody. That's the fun part. But do you have a strong base to come from? Are you false stepping, right? So as a lacrosse player, anybody that swings across their spine, it's important to make sure, can I sustain neutral spine and how long can I do it? Can I do it from a plank position? Can I do it while I'm standing? Can I do it while I'm sitting, right? You should be able to keep your core engaged in any position. If that's not the case, then start to practice that. Start to put that into your program. So maybe on days that you did high volume shooting and shots on a Monday, day 2, you cut your volume shooting to about 10% of what it was on a Monday. And then you increase your core stability and stability exercises to about 90% of your program. And then you do the same thing on the next day, on Wednesday. Right now it's a 50-50, right? So at the same time, you're controlling this over repping situation and managing. So when you're doing that and taking a look at that volume, take notes. Like, how does my body feel? Am I producing? Am I losing some kind of step? What are the quality of reps, right? As Coach Whitlow was talking about, like, was it unique? What was different about that one shot versus the other one? Just because it went in, is it the shot that I wanted, right? Just because the outcome should not dictate the intent behind what you're doing. I think it's important from a physical health position that you really understand your specific imbalances. And if you can't, you don't have enough content or knowledge on your own to go seek help, reach out, connect with coaches that you really trust, that have a great wealth of knowledge, and ask them, hey, I'm starting to feel this. I mean, we have email, we have text messages. There's so many ways to go out there and seek that information so that it can be specific towards you.
Awesome. I think we're going to probably have to do a follow-up on that one. Hopefully it's an issue where we are controlling over repping. That would be a good goal. So from a self-awareness standpoint, I think that's, Coach Jay's talking about the mind-body connection and a self-awareness, deal. You're on your own doing your thing in your backyard, film yourself, watch it. It's hard to explain to a young athlete, if your feet don't feel right, then don't shoot the ball. Okay, well, what does that mean? Maybe you're not mature enough emotionally to understand, that lacrosse is a feel game. What does that mean? Well, once you get older, you understand that okay, maybe I shouldn't have pulled up from 14 and let that shot go when my feet were compromised and there was a defenseman coming that hindered my follow through. Well, it's a simple thing to understand. And once you understand it, you won't forget it. If your feet don't feel right, don't shoot it. And that's what repetitions, what unique reps, what meaningful reps will give you, especially if you're self-aware and you're being honest with yourself. Coach Az, quick question for you. If you could go back and be 15, 16, 17 years old, knowing what you know now, playing professionally and coaching Division I lacrosse and having been a Division I lacrosse player, what would you do differently during this time when you're repping in your backyard, hardcore Westfield Blue Devil style?
Yeah, I would do probably a good amount of things, and a lot have been mentioned here. I think I would have had a much better routine and a stricter routine, as Coach Hopper talked about earlier. And in regards to over repping, that's something that I kind of found out in college from my offensive coordinator. I used to go out and dump a bucket of balls and, shoot as hard as I could and kind of do it mindlessly. And I ended up hurting my oblique. But what I kind of found through that was, my coach is kind of asking me, hey, are these meaningful reps, right? Are you thinking about where you want to put the shot? Are you thinking about how you want to deceive the goalie and, how your body language should be when you're shooting the ball? And I wasn't. I kind of was just going out there aimlessly and shooting. So to answer your question, I think I would be much more thoughtful when I would go out to shoot. And I would also try to focus on, one thing I wanted to get better at that day. That's another piece of advice I got from my coach. He said, don't ever leave the field, right, without, knowing that you got better at that one thing you're working on. So I would have had a much stricter routine, and, I would have wrote down my daily schedule. And, when I was shooting, I would get 10 to 15 good game speed reps, as opposed to shooting, 50 balls kind of aimlessly without thinking about what I'm doing.
I hesitate to mention that I had the privilege of coaching Chris. I think in some ways I probably learned a lot more from him than he did from me. That's good insight, Coach Az. Really appreciate that. We'll probably do a follow-up on that as well. Coach Hopper, you're not that far removed. You got a pretty high-level box game. What would you do differently if you could rep back in the day as the high school guy? Coach Hopper, I don't know if you're aware of this, Coach Az, but Coach Hopper had a really, really high-caliber sidearm shot. He could put it anywhere, fast.
Yeah.
Coach Hopper, what do you got?
I think it came from my hockey background. I would echo what Coach Az said, having intent when you go into the backyard. Like, all right, I'm going to shoot 100 balls righty, 100 balls lefty, 50 on the run righty, off a split, 50 on the run lefty, off a split. I look back and there was a lot of time where, you're kind of just shooting without purpose. But it's also a good time to like experiment and just have the stick in your hand and, get to know your stick, get to know angles and stuff like that. So there is benefit to just kind of free flow, but I would, I'd go back and just be more organized about the way I was practicing. And I think that would have helped me more with my game.
Coach A, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I truly believe that we're all just sharing the similar touch points there. We all wish would have been a little bit more organized. I think it's important that, especially now, you definitely have the time to sit down and really organize and, script it out. How many game time shots am I going to take? How many non-dominant side shots am I going to take? And then start to grade yourself out of it. One of the cool things that when I would teach anybody a new exercise is, look at your sets and your reps as like a pop quiz, right? So if I got a 3 out of 7, I'm obviously doing poorly at quality reps. Let me improve that. What are some of the exercises that I learned beforehand, or corrective exercises beforehand I can do to make sure that when I get underneath the squat rack or underneath the bar or bench press, that I'm getting the best grade possible per set.
Good stuff. You know, as far as purposeful messaging and purposeful content, you know, I hope this is helpful to families and helpful to student athletes. We'll obviously keep supplying it and keep being a resource of leadership, and at this point, I think a lot of people are doing it, but you know, to lead the right way, I think is important, and that can't be done without thoughtfulness, mindfulness, compassion. Obviously, these are unique times that we're in right now, so best to all of our families and loved ones, and certainly all those families that are affected by this situation. And we will continue to lead with courage and vigilance. Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's an honor, and we will talk again soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Joe.